Folks, we are live on YouTube.
Yes, indeed. We are live on YouTube. Hi, Howard. We are live on YouTube, but let's just do a test to see if we can hear you fine. We can certainly see you fine, so that's good.
I think
I
you're
think
on
you're
mute.
still on mute.
Okay, how's that? Am I
Yes.
coming through now? All
Yeah,
right.
you're coming through fine.
Okay, very good.
I guess, Howard, the plan is that Kirti, who is one of the trustees of BAS, will introduce the club really quickly. And soon after, I have something that I've written up to introduce you, hopefully not too embarrassing.
I hope not.
And then you can take it away.
Okay. Okay.
So we wait for another 8 minutes, right, to start?
Actually, I was thinking you can start introducing a little earlier so Howard can start his talk at in 7 minutes, whatever. Or
Okay, all right. So, hi, hello everyone. Welcome to this talk by Mr. Howard Banich. Sir, welcome to BAS. Thanks for agreeing to give this talk. We have seen a lot of your posts. We have read your posts. We have seen your wonderful sketches, and we are seeing you now, and it's really nice. Thanks for agreeing for this talk. So before we begin, I'll just give an introduction about BAS. So BAS is Bangalore Astronomical Society. We are located in South India, in the state of Karnataka, in the city of Bangalore. We have been active since 2005, 2006. So almost about 19 to 20 years now. And yeah, Akash was one of the first members of BAS, one of the founders of BAS. And then now, after he moved to US, we have been continuing his work and also trying to do some interesting stuff. So we conduct a lot of star parties. So in Bangalore, it rains about 8 months, or it's cloudy and rainy about 8 months. But from December till December till March, it is clear. So in the winter months, the weather will also be very pleasant, and we conduct star parties. There is a 300 kilometers from Bangalore. There is a place called Talkaveri in Coorg. So that has Bortel 2, Bortel 3 skies. So that's where we conduct our star parties. Apart from star parties, we also conduct a lot of outreach sessions for school children. So mainly rural and government schools, but also private schools in the cities. But all these are done as non-profit initiatives without taking any money from anyone. It's just volunteers who take their telescopes, take out their time, and do these kinds of activities. Last year, we reached about 10,000 students. So we showed there was also this planetary parade and everything. So we made use of that and showed a lot of kids, about 10,000 kids, all these planets and other stuff. So apart from this, we also conduct some workshops for college students. So introduction to astronomy, introduction to amateur astronomy, and that kind of stuff. So yeah, so that's about BAS. So thanks for agreeing for this talk. I hand it over to Akash to introduce you to the crowd.
Okay, thank you very nice. That was very nice.
Thank you, Kirti. I'll just add for the people in Bangalore that BAS is soon going to conduct an astronomy workshop and on November 15th, right? And I'm sure we'll get to the registration logistics pretty soon. Actually, when you mentioned that Bangalore is cloudy so much of the year, I think Howard really resonates with that because where he lives in Portland, Oregon, is also very similar. And
Very.
yeah, so Howard does, what do? You drive like about 4 or 5 hours on most new moons to get clear skies, right?
Yes. Yeah, that's typically what I have to do.
Right. And because of the cloudy weather, Portland has a very good ATM culture, and Howard is also a telescope maker. My hope is that by introducing Howard to the Bangalore audience, maybe some folks will also be inspired by his ATM work. Howard's going to be talking about his visual stuff today, but he's also done a lot of ATM. Yeah, okay, I'll start introducing Howard.
I think you already have.
That was the pre-introduction. I've written something up. So yeah, I'm really delighted to host this talk by my mentor and friend, Howard Banich, who I first met in 2016, actually at Jimmy Lowry's place. I hadn't come across his work in a big way before that, although he had already started writing for Sky and Telescope. And I was really mind blown when I saw his sketches by their accuracy, the amount of detail he captures in his sketches, and also the aesthetic appeal that he puts into their finish. And so it certainly, his sketching certainly inspired me to become a better observer and also start my own sketching. Yeah, of course, some of you may have read Howard's exceptional articles in Sky and Telescope magazine with his very sort of experiential writing style. I don't know how exactly to describe it in a word. But like I said, not only is Howard an exceptional visual observer and astro-sketcher, he is also an exceptional telescope maker. His telescope design has inspired like many other telescope designs, both amateurs and professional, including my own 28-inch telescope design is a partial copycat of Howard's 28-inch. He also ran the ALTAS workshop until this year, which just finished earlier this month. And the ALTAS workshop is the premier, I would consider it as certainly a premier telescope maker conference for amateur telescope makers and a few professionals also involved. Their work is really at the cutting edge of telescope making. Howard's major contributions there, there's so many across various aspects of telescope making, but one that I'd like to call out is his efforts on spray silvering mirrors, so you can coat it at home without a vacuum chamber, just spraying silver onto your telescope mirror. So in fact, Howard uses a spray silver telescope mirror. Yeah, so I'll let Howard show you his sketches now and talk about deep sky observing. Yeah, hopefully it inspires you as much as it inspired me ever since I've met him and followed his work. He's really a great inspiration to me. Yeah, so Howard, take it away.
Okay. That's very nice, Akers. Thank you. I am blushing a little bit. Um, so I will bring up my presentation and we can get started.
Vishwa, on YouTube, can you please focus on Howard so that people can see his screen?
There you go.
Yes, I think we're there.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Hide floating meeting controls. There we go. Okay. Let me just put this up here. Okay, well, good evening, everyone. I'm as Ecker said, I'm in near Portland, Oregon. That's the Oregon is the state just north of California, and as Ecker also mentioned, it's also a very rainy, cloudy part of the world for most of the year. Our rainy season started about 2 weeks ago, and it will go until about May, early June. Um, it's not continuously cloudy, but also I'm able to find clear skies by going on the other side of the Cascade Mountains to the east, where there's a high desert plateau and the skies are very nice. In fact, the photo you're looking at right now is taken at the Oregon Star Party in 2019, and that's in Central Oregon in the rain shadow of our local mountain range. And you can see what a beautiful sky it is, but you're also probably shocked at how low the summer Milky Way looks. Just to the left of the H in my name, that's the cluster M7, and that's as high as it gets here. So anyway, so this is the title of the presentation. Oh, and by the way, this is me. I'm sitting here looking through my then 28-inch telescope and having a very good night of it. So let's see. Oh, come on. There we go. Something's got to give. All right, my arrow keys aren't working, it seems. Anyway, I've been an amateur astronomer since 1966. Probably most of you weren't even alive then. I'm 70 years old, by the way, just so people don't try to figure that out from these dates. I started sketching what I see through my telescope in 1974. And I live in a small town about 50 kilometers northwest of Portland, Oregon. And it's relatively dark where I live here, but not really dark. No, arrow key just does not want to work. Oh, I should mention my normal video camera wasn't working this morning, and now the arrow keys on my keyboard aren't working. So I'll just flip through here as best I can using my mouse. Okay, so this is an image that I saw at a presentation a couple weeks ago at the Altaz workshop. Mel Bartels was giving a presentation. Mel, I'm sure some of you are aware, is probably the most, if not one of the most skilled and innovative telescope makers and a fantastic observer. Well, anyway, he came up with this. He found this image of the cave painting from Lascaux, France, it was painted approximately 17,000 years ago. And what really got me about this is that, I mean, here we have this bull, this horns, and then we have these 6 dots right here. I mean, and if this isn't the Pleiades, above the horns of Taurus, as we think of it now, I don't know what that is. Something Mel didn't actually mention, I mean, this orb right here, this kind of orangey brown orb, that's got to be the moon in total eclipse. So people have been recording what they see in the night sky for a long time. This, no doubt, is not the first time this ever happened, but this is the oldest that we have. So human beings are kind of predisposed to record what they see in the night sky and during the day. I keep hitting my arrow buttons, hoping for a better result. So this presentation is about how you can use sketching to see more through your telescope. That is the primary purpose, but I'll touch on several other things along the way because that kind of comes along with sketching and also just observing in general. And but with sketching, aside from being a tool to see more, it's also a way to create a permanent record of what we see. And um, I have, like I mentioned, I've been keeping sketching and making notes since 1974. So I don't even want to think about how long a time that is, but it's a long time. And they are my single most valuable personal possessions, without a doubt. The other big thing for me, and of course, I'm talking about all this through my own experience and perspective. But for me, doing this gives me a deeper connection with the cosmos and our past, our human past. And not just 17,000 years ago, but in the more immediate past, like over the last few hundred years. By the way, this background drawing is the globular M5. And I like this one because these two stars are the two brightest variable stars in M5. They're Cepheid variables, and this shows them at their maximum. When they're at their minimum, they're about like this bright. They're quite dim, and this just changes the whole appearance of the cluster. And watching them vary over the course of 27 to 29 days is really a fascinating thing to do. Okay, so sketching is a tool to see more, and that's a tool, a technique, however you want to think of that. And all sketching really does is focus your attention. There is just that simple. And I could stop my presentation here and feel like I've covered the major point. But I know a lot of people think of sketching as being art. And you have to be an artist to be able to sketch anything, day or night. But this isn't about art, and I'll show you here in a few minutes what I mean by that. But yeah, this isn't about art or being artistic. And one of the things that's kind of cool about sketching is that you don't have to show what you sketch to anybody. It can be very private if you want. This is a drawing of M7, and this is the globular cluster in GC 6453, I think, if I remember right. And this is on the other side of the galactic center. And somehow we can see that through all that intervening material. I think it's like 30,000 light years away, something like that. Anyway, see, I keep hitting that button. All right. Boop, 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 boop. Okay. So this to define my terms, sketching is not drawing, and that's an important distinction to make. Sketching, I mean, this is sketching, and I'll show some examples coming up here. It's really a quick way to get a visual representation of what you're seeing down on the paper in your notebook, or on a piece of paper on a clipboard, or however you feel comfortable sketching at the eyepiece of your telescope. It's very basic. All you need is paper, a pencil, and an eraser, and of course a red flashlight. I'm not sure if the proper term used in India is flashlight or torch, but you can see in the photo there in the top right what I mean. Okay, now drawing is a more detailed and finished piece of work that a sketch can evolve into or can be used as the basis for a finished drawing. And a finished drawing is basically to try to represent more accurately what you've seen. The sketches to get down the pertinent details, yeah, and use it along with written notes can be used to make a drawing. And digital drawing tools are very helpful for making a finished piece. And this is best suited for the daytime at a desk. Trying to make a finished drawing at the eyepiece at night is so difficult. I mean, some people can do that. They're better artists than I am. So, but if you're just thinking about getting into this, I recommend starting very simple. Paper, pencil. I use a mechanical pencil with an eraser on the end. There's the eraser, mechanical pencil. Very simple. I'm not fumbling around in the dark trying to find, all these different drawing tools that some people like to use. And they're very useful for making a drawing during the day. Let's see. All right, I'll get the hang of this. Here we go. So here's an example of a sketch. This is Barnard's E, and this is how it appeared in my 30-inch telescope about not quite a year ago. And you can see this is not a fancy looking drawing. I'm just kind of drawing the contours of making notes. MW is Milky Way, continues through here. It's about 3/4 of a degree long. I mean, I'm making visual sketchy notes along with some written notes as well. So I can then take this visual information and the written information and make this drawing. Now, this took a lot more effort, because what I do is that I will find an image of, like in this instance of Barnard Z online. I'll print it out, and then I'll put tracing paper over the top of that image, and I'll plot all the bright stars that I show here. And you can see, I mean, look at that. That's a star. Yeah, that's the star. All right. I'm just not being very careful on making them circular. I'm just kind of basically trying to show how bright they were in relation to each other and basically where they are. Here's a little note, orange yellow star. All right. I think you get the idea. So I make this, and then all the fainter Milky Way stars, those are just dotted in randomly to give the overall effect as accurately as I could, but they're not all plotted exactly where they are. Like, this star, yeah, it probably really isn't there, but it gives the idea of what I was seeing. But again, this is a negative image. Okay, I didn't really see this. This is the drawing I made based off of my sketch. And so this is more of what I saw. And when I get to this point in making, taking a sketch and turn it into a drawing and then turning it into a more realistic representation of what I saw, it's really satisfying because then I can show people, hey, this is what I saw. But to get to here, from here to here to there, when I finish this, I have to either put this on my flatbed scanner and get it into digital form or take a photograph of it. And then I can bring it into a drawing program on my computer where I can do this inverting process and change some of the tonal qualities and the contrast and so on and so forth to make this look as realistic as I can possibly make it. All right, let's see if there we go. Okay, so the next image will be one of my favorite sketches. I've used this in a lot of my presentation. This is M82, drawn with my 28-inch. So that's a finished drawing. That's not a sketch. Okay, now like I said, this is one of my favorite pages in all. I have 18 sketching notebooks, observing notebooks at this point, with thousands of observations. And this is one of my favorite because it shows, and this sort of thing has happened many times. I don't know, I just like this one the best. I was NGC 7331. When I first started my sketch, I was seeing this part of the galaxy. And I was seeing these three of his companions. Um, and as I was sketching and getting everything on paper, I was going, hey, wait a minute. I can see the galaxy stretching out more in both directions, more and more, and then more and more and more and more. And suddenly I'm up in what I'd written in my previous observation. And then I noticed this fourth companion, and I had to add it on to the opposing page. So this is an illustration of how to see more by sketching. You know, what's going on in this process is that as I'm looking more and more, I'm looking in the eyepiece, I'm putting sketches on, sketching in my notebook and going back and forth over time. This probably took, half an hour, 45 minutes. So wait a minute, we can tell exactly 11:12, 11:42. So quite a while. And as my notes here say, I added to the sketch over the next few nights. So this kind of is the sketch that turned into almost a drawing. One of these days, I'll probably make a real finished drawing of this because it's just such a beautiful galaxy, and these four companions are just marvelous. But this just shows it's kind of like it's a slowly developing old photograph. If any of you can remember how original photography was done with film, and how the photographic image would slowly appear as it was being developed. So that's, like I said, that's one of my favorites. Okay, now let's kind of step back in time. John Herschel, the son of William Herschel, he continued his father's work. He basically took his father's telescope, his 18-inch speculum mirror F12 front view telescope, from England to South Africa. And he wanted to do the survey work his father had done in the north and complete it by surveying the southern skies. And on a few objects, John Herschel made what he called monographs. And the way he would prepare to draw those monographs was to make a sketch. And this is one of his preparatory sketches of M8, the Lagoon Nebula, which it doesn't look like that at all. One, because it's mirror reversed. And two, what are all these lines? Connecting the stars. Well, what Herschel did, what John Herschel did, is that he basically used surveying techniques to get the locations of all of these stars as accurately placed as he possibly could. So he would measure the position of each of these stars with a small refractor, not with the 18-inch telescope. He had a micrometer eyepiece. And so he measured the positions so he could plot them on his paper, which you can see is also on a big grid. So then once he had the stars placed as accurately as possible, then he would sketch in the nebulosity you saw. And you can see, you can see the lines of his pencil here. I think that's marvelous. This is from about 1828, somewhere around in there. Almost 200 years ago. I just think this is wonderful. And, the note up here, sketching encourages careful study. And certainly Herschel embodies that. I mean, he was careful to way beyond what I can do or be inspired to do. I mean, as I already said, I'll print out a photograph and I'll mark the stars on tracing paper to come up with essentially the same thing. But he measured all of these stars carefully. That took a long time. It's really impressive. And this process, it trains your eye to notice subtle details. And yeah, maybe training isn't the best word. It's just you just by default, because you're paying more attention, you see more. It's really that simple. I mean, if you look at something in the eyepiece of your telescope, let's say for 10 minutes, and you go, okay, I think I've seen everything. Well, then go back and draw it. And you may find that you actually come back seeing more. It's really a remarkable phenomena. Okay. And of course, making a sketch preserves what you've seen, which for me has become increasingly valuable over time. Not only for my personal satisfaction, but when I'm writing an article for Sky and Telescope, I have all the body of all of my observations from 1974 to go back through to see the evolution of my observations of a particular object. And I always get a lot out of that. It's just so enjoyable, and to see how much more detailed my observations are. Yeah, I have bigger telescopes, but just how I pay more attention to what I see. And one more. Okay, averted vision. Everyone's familiar with averted vision. It's probably second nature to everyone. Many times don't even realize we're using averted vision. But this is averted vision really comes into play here when sketching, because the more I'm looking, the more my eye is darting around, looking at different parts, plotting these different areas on my sketchbook. Averted vision is just basically covering the entire field of view at some point, and perhaps that's really one of the keys here, is that the more averted vision, the longer that comes into play in a observation, the more that is seen. Okay, here's a drawing by John Herschel. This is the Great Orion Nebula, M42, M43. I really enjoy this part of drawing and sketching. To compare what I've seen back to what the great observers of the 19th century drew. It's really quite remarkable how different sometimes the object looked to them as it does versus what I can see, but sometimes also just how what they saw was so beautiful and so wonderfully rendered, like this image. This is a uh, I took Herschel's pencil drawing and inverted it in my drawing program. I'll get into all that in just a little bit, but to make it look more realistic, not just as a pencil drawing. And I think the effect is really quite marvelous. This is an exceptionally good drawing of the Orion Nebula. It really, I'm so impressed, from almost 200 years ago. Okay, oops. Well, there we go. Okay, so one of my friends, and Acrisher's friends, is Steve Gottlieb, and Steve has observed all the NGC objects and now all the objects in the IC1 catalog. That's a lot of objects and they were all discovered visually, almost all of them discovered visually. And Steve writes beautiful notes. I mean, very detailed written notes. He doesn't sketch, but basically he sketches with words. Um, and I think that's great. I am not that. My brain doesn't process words very well during the night, but I'm good visually, and so that's why sketching for me is the best way to record, because it also captures the experience of what I saw along with the notes. And yeah, I just find that a marvelous combination. And of course, you know, the notes can bring back all sorts of other things along with the sketch. It's very simple. All you need is a pencil, paper, and an eraser, and of course an adjustable red light. The You know, you contrast this with photography, you know, which is getting simpler and simpler. I mean, you can get a C-star telescope and you just tell it what you want to get a photograph of, and it'll just goes through all the paces for you. But I just have not yet seen the appeal of doing that. Yeah, I think it would be fun for a little while, but I don't know. I don't know. I like to put my effort into seeing what I can with my own eyes, I guess is what it really comes down to. And sketching is a real user-friendly way to get into that. Okay, very good. Okay, it's a great way to record the movement of a comet or asteroid. Pardon me. One of my favorite series of sketches is a comet, Hale-Bopp, that I sketched onto my old copy of Sky Atlas 2000. You know, every night that I could see it, and just, you know, watching it march across my charts and seeing, you know, how it grew in size and then gradually became smaller over time, um, is one of my favorite observations. Okay, and so I did a little experiment for this presentation. For the very first time, I asked AI about astronomical sketching, and it came out with a very nice, cogent list of the benefits of sketching at the eyepiece. I was quite impressed. So this is one of the parts that came out of that. So relaxing and meditative. It is. It really is for me. You know, I don't know anyone who sketches or takes detailed notes of the eyepiece who finds it stressful. Um, but it's just a very relaxing, and it's a wonderful way to connect personally with whatever it is that's being observed. This is my drawing of M33, by the way, in the background. And it's just very satisfying. I mean, this is what I saw. I mean, anyone else's drawing of M33 will look different from this for any number of reasons, you know, quality of the night, you know, different telescope, you know, our eyes are all slightly different. Sometimes they're a lot different. I mean, I could go on, but it's, it's, it's a sketch is basically a personal way to record what I've seen, what you've seen, what the other person has seen. And it's one of the reasons why, you know, sketching in the 19th century became so confounding, because all these professional astronomers would make sketches of an object and they all looked so different. They didn't know what was going on at first. Were these objects actually changing? They didn't really know. And that was one of the things that John Herschel, why he was so careful with his most detailed drawings, was that he wanted to see if these things are changing. So, and of course they are changing, but not in any meaningful way that we can see. Okay, and a human perspective, yeah, we're, you know, going back at least 17,000 years. This is just part of a continuum of how human beings can experience the sky, interpreting the sky. I'm sure the person or persons who made that cave painting in France had very different thoughts about what the sky represented than what we do today. Yeah, oop. That went too far forward. There we go. Okay, so on the other hand, this is difficult. You know, sketching in the dark, I mean, with a dim red flashlight. You know, it can be challenging at first. And oftentimes you're trying to sketch something you can barely see, and then you you start your sketch on a white piece of paper with your flashlight, and is your flashlight dim enough to not ruin your dark adaptation? I get around that by closing my observing eye while I'm sketching. So I just make my eyepiece sketches with one eye open, the eye I'm not using to look in the eyepiece. And that works for me, but it took some getting used to. There's no doubt about it. I don't think that's something that everyone would find very pleasant, but it's second nature for me. And as this photo shows, I mean, I'm often standing on a ladder. There's my 28-inch f4 telescope that pointing straight up, and I'm what, 6 ladder rungs up and off the ground. Yeah, so and then it's often cold, could be windy, it could be dewy, it could be humid, it could be buggy. I mean, there are some nights where it's just absolutely perfect, but some nights are kind of irritating in one way or another, environmentally. So, being able to dress for the night is really important, as we all know. So I think, astronomical sketching is the most difficult version of sketching. Sketching anything during the day is way easier. And that's, my pro tip at the bottom. Practice sketching from a photograph during the day is a good way to get a basic pattern to start working with when you go to the eyepiece of your telescope. Yeah, it takes practice, like anything else. I mean, if when you first got on a bicycle, you just didn't take off and ride. You practiced, and then suddenly, okay, you don't even think about it. You're just riding your bike. It's the same thing with sketching. At first, you're learning how, and then boom, before you know it, you're just doing it. And here's a little practice sketching I did some time ago. And this was inspired by a comment where someone was telling me about an art class that they took in school where the teacher had them draw an egg, just a regular egg, a chicken egg. And until it looked like a real egg, they couldn't pass their class. And thought, well, that's okay. Drawing an egg is not easy. Like this sphere. That's not actually a sphere. It looks like a sphere, but that's just, charcoal markings on a piece of paper. And then I just kind of took that into astronomical objects from, like, this is an elliptical galaxy. Here's a spiral galaxy, seen edge on, almost edge on, and here's an edge on galaxy. And then these two very faint smudges, are a lot of show represent what a lot of faint fuzzies look like. And then you see these two lines kind of point. There's a third one here that you can barely see. Okay. Well, practicing making sketches like this, or these are really kind of drawings. These aren't sketches. Is just good practice for being able to use a pencil on a piece of paper to make a reliable record of what you've seen. Okay, whoop, 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 whoop. God, I'm having a hard time with this. Okay, some of my text got cut off here. The size of the telescope really doesn't matter here. Okay, like I mentioned, here I am looking through my 28-inch f4 telescope. I'm actually looking at the Lagoon Nebula right here, and that's coming up in more detail here in a minute. And I like this because you can see the reticle of my finder. And I have a big clipboard of a large piece of paper in my lap, and I'm making my eyepiece sketch here. So what's really important in this photograph, though, is that I'm comfortable. The telescope is tracking the object, so I don't have to deal with the instrument at all. And it just makes the whole process so much more enjoyable. So being comfortable and having a tracking telescope makes this so much easier. That said, not everyone has a tracking telescope, but everyone can find a way to get comfortable. at the eyepiece. And just that comfort factor will help you see more anyway. If you're bent over and twisted as you're looking through the telescope, that can only go on for so long before your neck or your back or your knees or your shoulders start to ache. So comfort is a big part of all this. Okay, now this is kind of a standard form for sketching at the eyepiece. Yeah, you can write in all this information here, blah, 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 blah. You can see that. And inside these circles, these represent, what's seen in the eyepiece. And then you have a place for notes. And you can print out a bunch of these that you can put into a notebook and just sketch away. A lot of people find this very useful. I don't like these at all. I find these circles to be very constrictive. They're pretty small, and if you're drawing a large object, you can't get all the details that you're seeing in your telescope in here. Now, if let's say you're using a smaller instrument like a 70 millimeter refractor, well, maybe this works pretty good, but as we start to get into like the 6, 8, 10 inches of aperture, I think these are just too restrictive. And this is over here, by the way, is a drawing of M66. Yeah, M66. So anyway, this is a personal choice. I just start with a blank sheet of notebook paper. No lines, no nothing. And yeah, personal choice. Okay, now here's where I'll get into some detail on how I sketch. This is a finished colorized drawing of the Great Orion Nebula. So I kind of thought that juxtaposition between this finished drawing and how I sketch was interesting, but anyway. So, first step, observe without sketching. For a little while, use your averted vision. I mean, see what you can see, enough that then you can then start your sketch in your notebook. Just get the basic qualities, and you want to just do this long enough to get everything started on the piece of paper, because a good start, like in most things in life, a good start gets you 90% of the way there. And so, observe the object, soak it in, look around. Is there any other objects nearby? It's a very, very relaxed, no hurry. You're just kind of letting the object kind of soak into your brain, into your eyes. Okay, so then once you have that rough approximation, then you get into the back and forth between looking in the eyepiece, adding to the sketch, looking in the eyepiece, adding to the sketch, back and forth, using averted vision all the while. And you just keep doing this until you no longer see anything new. And that could take 5 minutes. It could take several nights. Depends on the object. The Ring Nebula here in the background, this is the finished and colorized version of this beautiful planetary nebula. One of the things I really like about a silver coating on the primary mirror of my telescope is that it really brings out the color of objects much more so than aluminum coatings do. And I had no idea that would be the case when I started doing this. Gosh, I guess it was only about 6 years ago. But yeah, silver coatings are the way to go. Anyway, that's kind of beside the point. Okay, so now how do I turn a sketch into a drawing? Okay, as Akers mentioned, I've been writing articles for Sky and Telescope for a while, and all my articles include a drawing of whatever the object is I'm writing about. And that's kind of my signature style, I guess. And in the background here is the Cygnus loop, which I painstakingly sketched and turned into this drawing. Actually, the piece of paper I ended up doing the finished drawing on is about a meter square, a square meter. It's by far the largest pencil drawing I've ever done. It may not stay that way, but time will tell. But this is a marvelous project. I mean, I just could only observe like this much of it at a time with my 28-inch telescope, and so I just gradually went through the whole thing, and it was such a fun project. It took a long time, but it was a fun project. All right, so here we go. Okay, start with the sketch. Okay, let's call this NGC 4565, beautiful edge on galaxy. This is a rough sketch. You can see the rough pencil marks. I got the basic outlines of the object and kind of basic dark lane there in the middle. Okay, that's where we start. And that took maybe, I don't know, 2 or 3 minutes to get down on a piece of paper. Okay, then did I miss one? No. Okay. And then using my finger, my little finger in this case, I use that as a blending, the way to blend those individual pencil marks into a more natural looking, smoother looking version of the sketch. You can see on here, all those lines are still there. Over here, it's starting to look a lot smoother. Okay, and this is a cleaning bag it's available at the art media outlets. Buy them online. They're very inexpensive here in the US. I don't know if they're available elsewhere or not. Basically, it's just a cotton bag. You can see there's my thumb for scale, filled with shavings from an eraser. So all these little shavings you can see in here, these little particles, those are erasers. And basically that just kind of cleans up all the smudges that invariably happen when you're drawing with pencil. It's a very useful thing. Of course, this is we're turning a sketch into a drawing now. So this is done during the day. This is not out at the eyepiece. You can also use it as a gentle eraser, kind of pinch it off a little bit like that. That works really nice. You can add some final pencil highlights. Okay, and there's the tools I used. There's the drawing. That's the sketch that turned into a drawing. My pencil, again, a mechanical pencil with an eraser on the end. But this is an eraser pencil. This is just all eraser in here. So this probably has, oh, I don't know, probably about 60 millimeters of eraser only that you can, push up through the end here. And I will shape the end here with a razor. If I need something, a really fine eraser point, then I'll just cut that. So I like for making the dark lane here. Yeah, that works really well. And then there's the cleaning bag. So making a final drawing can be almost as basic as making a sketch at the eyepiece, but it doesn't have to be. And I mentioned already, I think I'm going to be repeating myself. I use a photograph, use tracing paper to get the bright stars and maybe a faint outline around the border of the object. That's a great way to start off to get the proportions correct. And I really should emphasize that point. Getting the proportions correct at the beginning will make the sketch and then later the drawing so much easier to complete. If the proportions get out of whack, yeah, it can be really frustrating actually. Okay, well, okay, kind of already said that. I apologize for this. I have not had a chance to to rehearse my talk. Um, anyway, then also we'll use a photograph, and I'll consult the photograph while I'm at the eyepiece, by the way, to see if there are some subtle features that I haven't noticed yet, that now I know where they are. I can focus my averted vision there to see if I can detect them. And then I can add them to the sketch if I definitely see those details. Yeah, at this point, the sketch is starting to turn into a drawing. During the day after an observation, I will look at my sketch. If you remember back to that sketch of Barnard's E that I showed earlier, and how I rendered the stars, and they're, some are kind of round, but most of them are like little lines or squiggles, and yeah, they didn't look like little dots. I mean, but during the day, the next day, I will often clean those up so they are more dot-like. Um, and erase smudges, and there's sometimes just a stray pencil line or two that got on there that I didn't notice in the dark, and so I'll just kind of clean that up. So, and then I'll keep doing this until I'm pretty sure I've seen everything I'm going to see, at least during that observing run. Sometimes I'll work on a sketch and a drawing for several years. As I mentioned, I mean, our rainy season, cloudy season starts in early October and goes through at least May. It used to go through all the way through June, but the climate is changing. And so observing anything during the winter, the late fall, winter, and spring is is difficult. Sometimes we get wonderfully clear skies for a while during that time, but you can't count on it. Not like you can during the summer here. So, yeah, like that drawing I showed of the Orion Nebula that I drew. That was several years of work, only because there are some years where I might get one night to actually work on my sketch. Okay, so after you go back and forth through this, that rough sketch is turning into a drawing. Now, the same thing works for planets. This isn't just about deep sky objects. It's obviously a Saturn. This is my favorite drawing of Saturn that I made. I think this is 1998, 97, something like that. Yeah, this is drawn at over 1,000 power, and it's the first time I unambiguously saw Encke's gap. That's that thin gap right along here on the outside of the rings. It was quite the observation. So, when I am observing the same object over multiple nights, I have a choice. I can start a new sketch each night, which seems like a lot of extra effort to me, or I just add to the original sketch, which, as you might guess, makes the most sense to me. It certainly saves a lot of time, and also it kind of depends though on how complex the object is. A simple object, you're not going to start a new sketch you're not going to add to the original sketch probably, because you probably saw everything you could on the first night, with the exception being you might have started your sketch on a night where the conditions were kind of so-so, and then the next time you come to it, you have this spectacular night where you go, oh, I wonder how much more I can see now. And yeah, so I think you get my point there. All right, there we go. Okay, and then the finished drawing. Now, all this got cut off. I'm sorry about that. So when I turn my sketch and or drawings into a publication worthy finished drawing or rendering, as I like to think of it, I'll redraw uh, the the object on a larger piece of paper so that I can not only capture each detail um, uh, in as much detail as I can, and also fit the requirements for being published in the magazine, Sky and Telescope. Um, and depending on how big the piece of paper is, I'll either scan it in my flatbed scanner or photograph it to get it into my drawing program called GIMP. As you can see, GIMP. It's a free program. It has pretty much all the same functions as Photoshop, but it has the additional virtue of being free. So I like that. The the program, I use it to make the finished drawing look more like what I saw in the eyepiece, like this background sketch of Hale Bopp. Seeing just was going around in the inner coma here, which was just fascinating. And this is the tools I use mostly in GIMP are here. The I almost always make the finished digital image with higher contrast than what I actually saw, so it can survive the publishing process. I learned early on that you know, printing sketches and also photographs in a magazine sometimes does this weird things to my drawings, and so I just give them a little extra contrast, so everything that I have on the paper will show up in the magazine. And also, it just makes them easier to look at in general. You don't have to ask people to use their averted vision to look at your sketch. Okay, so here's an example using M8 Lagoon Nebula. The image there in the center is one of my very first sketches from 1974, using my 8-inch f4, which I still have, I'm happy to say, and still use. And here again, you can see, I mean, my sketching style hasn't changed much over the years, especially with stars. Uh, yeah, I really like that. Okay, so think back to that photograph of me sitting at my 28-inch telescope, sketching away. This is the big clipboard I had in my lap, and this is the sketch I was making that I worked on for about a week of nights at that 2019 Oregon Star Party. And so this is what I came back with. Of course, I had all these stars already marked off. This is a big piece of tracing paper. And I had a photograph, and I, dotted in all these stars so they were in the correct position, just like John Herschel had done by actually measuring the position of the stars. So much respect for that dedication. So that looks pretty good actually, but that's not good enough to to have published. So I redrew that. Here we go. It's oop, 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 oop. See, I can't control my mouse very well. So anyway, here we go. So I redrew that eyepiece sketch on another piece of paper, a higher quality drawing paper. All the same details, everything is where it needs to be. And you can still kind of see that through here and here, you can kind of see the texture of the paper come through. Okay, so that's my finished pencil drawing. Then I think I had to photograph this one because it was too big for my scanner. And then I brought that into, can't control my mouse very well. Got that into GIMP. I was able to smooth out the pencil marks, make the nebula look more nebulous. Get the stars with higher contrast. Okay, and that's starting to look pretty good. And as you've already seen, then I inverted that image. Okay, now this looks a lot more like what I saw during that week at the Oregon Star Party. This was a wonderful experience for me while I was drawing this, because we had such a, a string of one of the best observing nights ever. But that doesn't have all the information in it that I actually saw. So there we go, there, and there's color. That's one of the great things about using a drawing program on my computer, is that adding color is really a straightforward process, and really brings out the reality of what I saw. I get a great deal of satisfaction from that, and this is what was published in the magazine. Okay, there we go. Okay, this is a sequence of sketches of Hubble's variable nebula, all taken at the very least a year apart. I have about 30 of these now. I've been following this for a long time. It's a wonderful object. You can see how it changes. It really is variable. It is quite astonishing how much it can change from year to year, or even from night to night. There have been times when I've seen small changes night to night. And this website is where you can see all of my published drawings. I have a zillion sketches, but the published drawings are on my website, and everything else is in my notebooks. I'll probably always stay there. Okay, so again, sketching is a discipline to focus your attention. That's really what it's about. It's a technique to help you use your eyesight and your eye brain system to its fullest potential while you're at the eyepiece. And I know a lot of people are intimidated by sketching because they think it's about being artistic. And for astronomical sketching, it is not about being artistic at all. It's all about seeing everything you can. And this background image is of the Hercules galaxy cluster. I think it's Abel 2151, if I remember right. And the last thing I want to say is thank you for your attention, and which I appreciate very much, especially the invitation to give this talk. I have no idea if I've gone too long, or no, just about an hour. That's not bad. And if you have any questions, I'm available for that.
Oh, thanks, Howard. So we have a few questions from YouTube. One of the questions is when the okay, how do you get the scale or proportion correct when the sketch spans multiple FOV angular diameters? So when the object is multiple FOVs, how do you keep the scale correct?
Well, if it's a large object like M8, like the example I just went through, I'll start off by printing a photograph offline from online, and then tracing in the position of the brighter stars, and maybe sketch the outline of the nebula. And that way I can do that. If it's a smaller object, like most things are, like most things in the night sky are galaxies, then because I've been doing this for so long, I just eyeball it. I'm just okay. I'm a good sketcher by now, and I sketch things during the day sometimes as well, but it's just a matter of practice, where I can get the proportions correct. So like for that sketch I showed of NGC 7331. What I did in that case, as I remember anyway, this is a few years back, is that I drew the galaxy first, what I could see of the galaxy, and then the companion galaxies. And then I added the stars in. I kind of did it backwards from how I would do it for a big object. Then I added the stars in relation to the galaxies. And Are the proportions 100% correct? No, I can pretty much guarantee they're not. Um, but they're close enough for that kind of a sketch to show what I was seeing. So for me, that's good enough. If I was going to turn that into a finished drawing, I would go through the steps of printing out a photograph from online, tracing paper, get everything exactly correct, and in the spirit of John Herschel, and then go on and complete the drawing that way.
Okay. That's great. So I think the next question is also regarding this second, I mean, whatever you just said. So when you refer to the photographs, how do you, and then you are also looking at some of the subtle features, but is it possible that maybe you have not seen this live, but you have actually seen this only in the photo? So how do you make sure that you have actually seen that feature in the really and not in the photo?
I love that question. And the answer is there is no way for me to know for sure. There's no way for anyone to know for sure. Um, I have a whole nother presentation about that very question about bias. Because we've all seen all these wonderful photographs, pretty much everything in the night sky. There's the beautiful example of M51. Well, the sketch in the background that Akash used for the announcement for this talk. If you look back through the 19th century on astronomical drawings of M51 and see how that has evolved and dramatically changed right up until the point in 1889 when the very first decent photograph of M51 was taken. And, and then and then everyone who sketched M51 started to look just like that photograph. But up until that point, it didn't. Different observers had very different looks on that. And if you ever want me to give my presentation about visual bias in astronomical sketching, I have one ready to go. In fact, it's tagged on to the end of this one. But there's no way to know for sure. But what I do is that I check myself as best I can. Say, for instance, okay, I have this photograph and I'm looking at it and I go, oh, what about this little faint feature over here? Can I see that? And I look and okay, yeah, I think I see that. So then what I do is that I'll shift the telescope to an area where the photograph doesn't show anything, and I'll try to see the same thing there. And if I can see the same thing there, I know my brain is trying to fool me. And I go, okay, well, I didn't really see that. Or I'll go back and forth a few times to see if it's consistent. And sometimes it is. Sometimes my brain insists I'm seeing something that isn't there. And by being able to check myself that way, um, that's the best I can do. And I think it's probably the best anyone can do because this is such a subjective experience. I mean, our eyesight is so subjective. And our brains are so um, easily fooled by patterns and by lines and by colors, by all sorts of things because of the way how our brain interprets what comes through our eyes. It's really a fascinating subject, and this is probably the best question to ask about sketching at the eyepiece. What are we really seeing, and are we really seeing it? Yeah, great question.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for that interesting answer. There is one more question. Is monocular viewing better than binocular viewing for sketching at the telescope?
I'm all about monocular, just a single eyepiece. I had a bino viewer for quite a long time, and probably for 95% of the time I had it, I didn't use it except on the planets because it really worked well on the planets and the moon. Um, but I eventually sold it because I'm not using this, and it's something that I know other people would really enjoy. So I sold it, and hopefully whoever bought it is enjoying it. But um, the thing about using a bino viewer on a telescope is that each eye is now getting 50% of the light from the primary mirror. So the image is dimmer. The image also has more contrast, so it makes up for that dimness somewhat. Um, and the ease of using both eyes is a big plus. Um, However, for sketching, I found because I close my observing eye when I'm actually sketching and my writing in my notebook, um, I really can't do that if I'm using both eyes to observe. When I would go to the sketchbook to sketch, I mean, I have to leave both eyes open, and so I lose some dark adaptation that way. So it just didn't turn out to work for me, but that's just me.
Okay, thanks. I had one question. I think you explained about how much time you take for finished drawing, but how much time do you take to sketch at the eyepiece for each object?
It depends on how complex it is. If there's a lot of detail, um, like that Lagoon Nebula sketch. I mean, I spent a whole week sketching that at the 2019 Oregon Star Party, and it wasn't all night long, of course, because in the summertime here, you only have maybe 3 hours per night where it's up high enough to see well. So so let's say over 8 nights, I spent 2 hours a night. Okay, so that's quite a few hours overall. If I'm drawing, that drawing of NGC 7331, that the first night I spent an hour and a half because I kept seeing more and more and more and more. But on previous nights, I maybe spent another 15 minutes in total. I just basically cleaned up the sketch as I went along. So it's very dependent on what I'm actually looking at. Um,
Mhm. Okay. Okay. Thanks for that answer. Then, in some of the images, the sketches like Orion Nebula and the Ring Nebula and so on, there were some colors. So, do you actually see those colors, or how much colors do you see in these objects?
well, the colors are usually pretty subtle. Um, Not always, but in the Orion Nebula in the central area around the trapezium, the colors there can be fairly dramatic. In fact, I discovered by accident one night I was observing that area and I had music playing on my phone, and for some reason the phone stopped playing the music. So I went over to the phone. I had to look at it and I had to get the music playing again. So my eyes are blasted with white light. Then I went back to look, and suddenly there's these bright orange areas that
Ah,
appeared. It's like, what happened? Well, evidently what happened was that bright white light reactivated my daytime color receptors in my eyes such that I could see the subtle colors that I hadn't really noticed before. Like I wasn't looking for colors until they were just so obvious I couldn't ignore them. The And evidently, it's a technique that some people use on purpose, and I've been using on purpose ever since to see if there is color. Um, if I know in an object that there's some striking color, I will use that technique. I'll blast my observing eye with white light and to see if I can detect any of this color. But also, as I mentioned, with a silver coating on my primary mirror, that brings out the colors way more than aluminum coatings had ever done on the same telescope. Everything else was the same. It's just the silver coating. I for years, for instance, I tried to see color in the Ring Nebula because what would happen, I'd be at a star party and parents would come along with their young children, 4, 5, 8, 9, 10 years old, and they'd go up and they looked at the ring nebula, and I'd ask, "Well, what do you see?" And they say, "Oh, it looks like a Cheerio, and it's red on the outside and it's kind of blue green on the inside." I go, I can't see that. I want to be 8 years old again so I can see that. And basically, that's what silver coatings have done for me is that I can see that.
Mhm. Okay. Okay, great, great. Yeah, thanks for that. We have a few more questions. Do you still have some more time? Is it okay?
Oh, of course, yeah. All the time you need.
Okay, thanks. So this comes from a astrophotographer. So he asks, how hard is it to handle field rotation if it is not on an EQ platform? Do you rotate drawing book to match the match, or EQ platform is the way to go?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I don't remember being asked that before. Field rotation while sketching just isn't a thing. Um, typically. I do have, there's one exception I can think of. Because typically, let's say over an hour and a half. In a photograph, that'd be significant field rotation. In a drawing, just visually looking in the eyepiece, I barely notice it. I mean, and if I did notice it, I would just kind of tilt my notebook, 15 degrees or whatever. Um, Now, when during the process of sketching the Cygnus Loop, the Veil Nebula complex, um, I started the sketching process during the summer, and I couldn't complete it that summer for because of weather and wildfire smoke and all kinds of things. So I continued and finished the project in the early spring when the Veil Nebula was just rising in the morning sky. And that turned the nebula at a completely different angle than I was used to seeing it during the summer sky. Because it's in the morning sky now. And the what was really cool about that is that different perspective of having it rotated is like, oh, okay, I'm seeing this in a whole new perspective now. And I noticed details I hadn't seen before simply because it was rotated.
Okay, nice. Nice. Okay, one more question. As a complete beginner to astronomy, how much time do you suggest we spend for sketching? And would it be better to start with planets than galaxies, or would that be counterproductive?
Another good question. It hmm. I think it would depend on several things. One is that um, what 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 are you most interested in observing? Because I find if whatever is most motivating is the thing that you're willing to spend the most time to learn. And that's true in telescope making. That you have to be determined and have a good deal of patience sometimes, and that part of the hobby as well. But the sketching the planets, you can do say you can do it from your back garden with all the lights on at night. In fact, that might be better. So you don't even need a flashlight to look at your notebook while you're sketching. Um, Yeah, I really suggest, practicing during the day from a photograph if you really want to get into this. Yeah, a little bit. Um, yeah, I got into sketching, pardon me, mostly because I was an inattentive student. I was the kid who was always kind of sketching away in the margins of my notebooks instead of actually taking notes. And fortunately, I was a good test taker, so I did okay. Um, but I was always been a sketcher. And beginning, in grade school, that was during the 1960s, and the space race was going on. I was all about rockets, so I was drawing rockets. and that transitioned into cars and then into old-fashioned sailing ships, and then I started trying to sketch people's faces, and I just really enjoyed it. Not all of them turned out very good, but I just enjoyed the process of just sketching, and so through that, it just kind of became, a thing for me where I didn't even think about how I was doing it because I just kind of practiced it. And, without any intention of ever, really using it for sketching what I saw through the telescope. But when I really started to observe, um, there was, 8 years between the first time I looked through a telescope and saw Saturn and then when I started to make sketches. When I first saw Saturn, I was 11 years old and I was just, you know, I was doing so many other things that, you know, making sketches through the eyepiece of the crappy little telescope I had just didn't occur to me. Um, so it just, and then you saw that very first sketch of M8 that I made in 1974. Yeah, it was pretty rough. Pretty much just about the same roughness as that sketch of Barnard Z. So I guess that might say that my technique really hasn't progressed that much, although I do use digital tools at the end to make a publication worthy drawing. But it all just comes down to how often you do it and how comfortable you are doing it. Sketching a deep sky object from a light polluted area, that's tough. Um, because your eyes will never get fully dark adapted. The sky is washing out the finer details that may or may not be there, whatever you're looking at. And the technique of sketching in the dark, like I mentioned, I mean, that's hard, it's difficult at first. There's no question about it. I mean, sketching is hard enough during the day for most people, and doing it at night just makes it twice as hard.
Yep.
So I guess my answer is that follow what interests you the most at first.
Mhm.
And if it's planets, great. If it's deep sky, great. Just see how it goes. And if you get discouraged and you find it's not for you, well, there's more than one way to enjoy this hobby. You don't have to sketch. You don't have to take notes at all. I have many good friends who observe and they don't do either, and they don't feel the lack of it. So yeah, it's a hobby. There's no wrong way to do it.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for the great answer.
Mhm.
One more question. So this is from a person who uses a 12-inch telescope. How to get the proportions right for sketching galaxy clusters? I use a 12-inch, which doesn't show much anyway.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, being able to get a good view of what you're looking at is like 99% of the of all of this, sketching or not. Um, the very best thing is to get to the darkest skies you can. Star parties, like Akrish mentioned, I'll drive 4 or 5 hours to get to a dark sky. No problem. Akash will drive for days to get to a dark sky. Like, I don't know how he does it. And he'll drive all day and he'll observe all night. Yeah, I do that too sometimes, but it's hard. Um, so how to get the proportions right? I think I've already answered that. It comes down to either you prepare in advance with tracing paper and plotting the major stars, and then maybe sketching the outline of the object in relation to the stars. And then at the eyepiece, you fill in the details that you see. Or if you have some artistic talent, some sketching talent, you can just kind of wing it if on smaller objects. I wouldn't think of winging it on something like the Veil Nebula. There's just too much. Everything would get out of proportion so quickly if it didn't have a prepared star field in advance.
okay, great. This is probably one last question. So So on one end we have this we have a documentary correctness and on the other end we have the complete artistic freedom. And where do you place yourself?
Um, I guess I'm on the end with the artistic freedom. Um, the prepared templates are, the people who use them love them because all they have to do is, I mean, everything is right there. They're reminded, okay, I sketch here, I write my notes here. Um, and if you have a smaller telescope, then usually that's totally fine. It's just too confining an area to sketch in for me for most things, like a galaxy cluster. Um, there's a drawing back in there and through my presentation of there's the Hercules cluster, but there's also one I didn't mention in the background of the Corona Borealis galaxy cluster, which is almost 1 billion light years away.
Mm.
And the brightest galaxies there are like 16.5 magnitude. No,
Oh,
15.5 magnitude, excuse me. And most of them are around 16th and 17th magnitude. Um, and sketching those into a little circle like that, yeah, they just couldn't do that. Mostly because the cluster itself isn't circular. Um, and 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 the the actual smudges for each little galaxy would be essentially invisible. So that was just a sketch that needed to be at a bigger scale. Um, if you're looking at an individual galaxy that's really faint, oh sure, yeah, you don't need much room for that. But I just like having the room to, on a blank sheet of notebook paper, um, to be able to sketch and to write in the proportions that whatever I'm looking at really need. Because one of the rules of thumb that I've come up with and I've neglected to mention earlier is that I like to sketch at the scale where I can draw the smallest detail clearly. So at that point, if the smallest detail I can see demands a piece of paper that's a meter square, well, okay, all right, I guess that's what I'm going to have to do eventually. So I'll just, in my sketchbook, I'll just drop pieces of it at a time, and then I'll assemble that into a whole sketch later, and then a finished drawing, and then so on.
okay.
And I like that freedom to be able to adapt how I'm going about my sketching to whatever I'm looking at.
Okay, great, great, thanks. I think we have come to the end of
There are
questions. So, oh, there are a few more, right?
there are a few more questions, and I think two of them are worth it if Howard has time.
Mhm. Oh,
Okay,
yeah. I got up early for this, so I'm awake now.
I know it's also getting close to the end in India, but I thought these two are worth discussing. One is the classic question of, is it easier to sketch on black paper with white pen, since you're seeing objects against dark skies? The other question is how hard. Sorry, the other question is, do you have any planned objects for your next sketches? And is there something you're particularly excited or eager to sketch?
Yes. Okay. So black paper. That's also a great question, and I neglected to mention. The the technique of sketching on black paper sounds really appealing. But the thing is that you can't use a pencil that draws in white is very different than a regular pencil with black graphite. It's a very different technique. I think, for me, I've never tried it, but the people I've talked to and they explain how they go about their technique of using black paper, they use gel pens for the stars, where they just kind of make a little dot of varying, widths to denote the stars, and it's very white on the black paper. The black paper has more texture than white paper does. Um, and be able to show nebulosity well, or like the faint gradations of a galaxy. What people do is that they'll use a paintbrush to use white pigment. So they're painting the object instead of using a pencil at the eyepiece. And some people are marvelous at that. But to me, that seems like a lot of trouble at the eyepiece. And because it turns out to become a process where you're making a finished drawing at the eyepiece. I think if I ever got into using black paper, I would use it to make the final drawing. And I would continue with white paper and a regular pencil at the eyepiece. It's just simpler. It's more direct. And at this point, I mean, I am so used to that process where I don't even think about it. Okay, so the second question, are there other objects I'm excited about sketching? Oh yeah. I just finished a, a drawing and an article about Leo 1, the dwarf spheroidal galaxy. It's a companion of the Milky Way. And it's, through the eyepiece, I mean, it's nothing that is all that exciting. But one of the things that I really love about writing for the magazine is that I always do research about the astrophysical characterization of each object. What's going on? Why does it look the way it does? How did it develop? Where did it come from? What is it going to become in the future? I mean, what's the latest research, essentially? And as it turns out, Leo 1 is this most fascinating object. And it turns this little, very uninteresting, uninspiring smudge in the eyepiece in this absolutely fascinating object. It's just remarkable how having this knowledge can make what we see so much more exciting. And that's my latest project that's in the process of editing right now. And yeah, I have some others. Gosh, there's so much in the night sky. I mean, there's just so much. I mean, one of the things that I've been sketching a lot this past summer was NGC 6520, the open cluster in Sagittarius that has the Barnard 86 dark nebula that it's either a part of or superimposed on, one or the other. Let me tell you, the view of that on a really good night through a large telescope is it just knocks my socks off. And so I spent a lot of time sketching that. I haven't started the process of turning that into a drawing yet, but that'll be coming. Yeah. Yeah, and there's several others, but like I said, there's the sky is full of wonderful things, and so it's yeah, there's no I don't see any end in sight for this for me anyway.
Okay, that's a great answer. There is one last question. Have you also sketched the moon? Any specific pointers that, as opposed to deep sky, for that, as opposed to deep sky objects?
Yes, I have sketched the moon at times. Yeah, and the moon is real. That's probably the most difficult because there's so much there's so much detail, even in a little telescope, even binoculars. Sketching the moon is almost overwhelming. So when I first sketched the moon, I think my very first moon sketch was the moon. It was in gibbous phase, halfway between first quarter and full moon. And God, I think I spent all of one night doing that. It was just there's so many craters, so mountain ranges and this and that and bright rays and yeah, it's great because the moon you really don't need, during the brighter phases of the moon, you barely need a flashlight to look at your paper. But I think what if you really want to see the details, like you want to focus in on one area, like around the crater Copernicus, let's say, just drawing the crater and the surrounding area, which will involve a lot of other craters, that could take hours. It's fascinating to do. And the end result, I mean, it can be really quite spectacular. It's people who are really good at drawing the moon can come up with some really good drawings and sketches.
Okay, thanks. So now I think we have come to the end of questions. I just
Okay.
wanted to tell about one point. So you talked about John Herschel. You showed us his sketches. So John Herschel's son, who was also John Herschel, Lieutenant John Herschel, he observed from Bangalore. So at that time, Bangalore skies were wonderful, and he observed from and Bangalore is at a height of 1,000 meters from the sea level. So he observed from here, and his observations are also available.
I didn't realize that. That's really cool. Yeah,
And
John Herschel. I mean, the Herschels are really quite the family.
yeah, yeah, that's right. And you talked about Hale Bob, and your sketch of Hale Bob comet is beautiful. And for me, that's the first uh, very interesting object that I saw in the sky, and that's how I got interested in astronomy. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so it brings up all those memories. So thanks for that.
Oh yeah, yeah. It makes the current comet lemon, kind of like okay. Yeah, yeah. I remember seeing Hale Bop one evening. I went to the grocery store, and when I came out, it was dark, and all the big bright streetlights were on in the parking lot. And I looked up and I could still see Hale Bob. That's how bright it was. It was just remarkable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
great, great.
Yeah, that was great. And that's a great way to get interested. I mean, comets can be just the most spectacular things you can see because they're just right there and they weren't there before. Where do they come from? Why do they look that way? I mean, you start asking questions and as you find out more, they become more and more fascinating.
Mhm.
Like right now, one of the things I'm looking forward to observe is Three-Eye Atlas later on in November and December. I mean, a comet from another stellar system, those don't come by every day. Yeah. Yeah, I think Akers is looking forward to that view through Jimmy's 48-inch scope too.
Let's hope it all comes together.
So, so yeah.
Okay, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Akash, over to you.
Oh, over to me. Okay, I guess we can close here. So thank you, Howard, for agreeing to give this talk. I mean, I've been so inspired by your work ever since I met you. I really wanted my friends in Bangalore to also, get to learn from you and look at your
Thank you.
sketches, be inspired. We have a set of very dedicated observers here. As you know, they lug their telescopes up to the Himalayas at 14,000 feet, and in that high desert where you need multiple nights of acclimatization, and that's the length to which people here go to access those skies, because South India is not
Yeah,
as
if I lived there, I would do that too.
so so
Oh,
so
definitely.
we have certainly some really dedicated observers, and I hope you've been an inspiration to them too.
I hope so. I'm just so enthusiastic and passionate about this. And probably more so as time goes on. So it's always a pleasure to do something like this. And when you invited me, I didn't have any second thoughts at all, even though you only gave me a week to prepare. I did have other presentations that I adapted into this one, so it wasn't from scratch. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, I know it was really short notice, but I didn't want the DST switchover to come and bite
Yes.
us.
Sure, sure. And as I mentioned, I have this whole presentation on bias, on visual bias. which I find really fascinating. And if you guys are ever interested in me presenting that as well, I'd be happy to.
Oh, great.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also, please present about the ATM, your ATM efforts. And
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'd be
yeah,
happy to. I have a presentation on that too, which I should
great, great.
update now because it's all about doesn't include my current telescope. But yeah, ATM is a whole different area of our hobby, and it's been really, really rewarding for me to watch Akers go from not knowing which end of the screwdriver to use to really being a really pretty good ATM person now. And so yeah, it's something that
Yeah. I have
the
really
view
good
through a telescope that you've made yourself is better than any you can buy.
Yeah, he's giving a talk about ATM in the the most well-known place for ATM in Bangalore. So yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I had really good mentorship. So that's Howard. I probably bombarded Howard with emails every day, and I still do. And
It was not every day anymore, but yeah, because you're getting the hang of it now. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, you were really patient with me. So thank you. Yeah, I hope
Oh yeah.
in
Well,
for
this
the.
is, I mean, when I first started, I didn't have anybody to talk to. Um, I just had to wing it, and I made so many blunders along the way. And it was just a great way to learn. You learn through your mistakes. Um, but yeah, today there's so much online, and to be able to communicate like we do, Akers, is really great. And to watch how your process has evolved, because I mean you have all this skill for programming, you have all this knowledge about electronics, but mechanically you're just starting to come up to speed to be able to combine all that now, and you're designing a whole drive system for your telescope. I mean, that's fabulous.
Oh, now you put me on the spot. It's on you.
okay, we didn't know
Well,
about
it's true.
this.
I don't want to embarrass you, but yeah, it's just really cool for me to watch that.
Yeah, thank you, Howard. Yeah, I think we will try and bring you back for something in telescope making. There's certainly interest, even if you met Sanat. I haven't, and I know Kirti has made a few mirrors, but it'll be really helpful to inspire more people to make telescopes during the cloudy season. So we'll certainly bring you back for that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I think that's exactly why there's so much telescope making in my area here in Oregon. Is that because we have so much of the year where we can't see the sky. So um, yeah, making telescopes is the next best thing.
All right. Okay, thanks a lot for your
Yeah.
time and
Oh, it's
giving
been
this
such a
wonderful talk.
pleasure.
There have
Great
been a lot
question.
of messages on YouTube and how they enjoy the talk. Everybody's appreciating the talk a
Oh,
lot. So
that's great to hear. Thank you,
yeah,
everyone.
thanks a lot. Have a nice day.
Yeah, you too.
Happy
Have
Halloween.
a rest of your evening.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
Good night.
Good night.
Thanks, Howard. See you.
You're welcome. Oops, where am I? Oop, 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 oop. Okay, I can't seem to get out.
I guess we need to cut the YouTube stream, right? Or is that automatic? I